Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Perez Art Museum, Miami. My name is Marie Vickles. I'm the Director of Education, and I want to thank you for joining us tonight for Local Views at PAMM. Our program tonight is with artist Corinne Stevie Francilus. Our virtual Local Views program is presented with the generous support of the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation and features Miami-based artists sharing their practice and discussing works of art from PAMM's exhibition programs that connect in various ways to their own work. As a 21st century museum dedicated to representing the people and communities of South Florida, the Perez Art Museum Miami strives to be a leader in the presentation, study, interpretation, and care of international, modern, and contemporary art, while representing and cherishing the unique diversity of Miami-Dade. Through our exhibitions and programs, we aim to encourage everyone to see art as an incentive for genuine human interaction. Tonight, I am so happy to present Corinne Stevie Francilus, a Miami-based multidisciplinary artist that makes bold and beautiful work inspired by Black history, life, culture, and Afrofuturism. Before I introduce Corinne, I would like to acknowledge and thank the incredible team of people that work so very hard to make these programs come together online. Thank you to Anita Bram, Associate Director of Adult Programs and Audience Engagement, and our world-class audiovisual team, Denise Faxis and Andrew Bird. We could not do this without you. Thank you. All right, let's get started. Corinne Stevie Francilus is a Haitian-American artist born and raised in Miami, Florida. Art is a constant and driving force in her life. She began drawing at the age of 5, which led her to be a visual art magnet student in middle school and then a fashion design student at the Design and Architecture Senior High School, also known as DASH, located in the Design District, and a national award-winning Miami-Dade public school, magnet school. In 2010, Corinne received her BFA in illustration design with a concentration in painting from Savannah College of Art and Design. In 2011, she was selected to showcase her work at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Georgia and has since been featured in galleries and exhibitions all over the world. She has illustrated children's books, designed cover artwork for musicians and bands, as well as created designs for packaging, merchandise, and more for various projects and artists. Corinne believes in the beauty of self-expression and is grateful for the gift of creativity. A woman of many talents, from 2014 through 2016, she toured the US, performing music with her band, Telekinetic Walrus. Her favorite project to date is a 6-foot by 32-foot mural she painted for Miami's historic Belafonte Talcosi Center in 2018. This mural is a part of a community garden project and depicts 2 otherworldly beings in a magical garden surrounded by butterflies and crystals. Currently, her work is on view in the exhibition Local Global at the Little Haiti Cultural Complex as part of the Global Borderless Caribbean Exhibition Series. As you watch along this evening on Facebook or YouTube Live, please post questions for Corinne in the comments section. She will try to answer as many as possible in the Q&A portion of this evening's presentation. And remember, if you value this and other programs presented by the museum, please consider supporting us by going to pam.org/donate. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Corinne Stevie Francilus.
Hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me for my presentation tonight. I'm so happy to be here. And I want to give thanks to Mary Vickles for always supporting me in my journey these past couple of years, and also the PAMM team for the amazing work that they do and showcasing artists from all over the world. Thank you so much. So let's get started. We're going to dive into my presentation that focuses on my creative journey, hip hop, and Afrofuturism. So before I get deep into what I'm about to present, I wanted to highlight my grandma, who recently passed a couple weeks ago. And I just want to dedicate this presentation to her because without her, my family, we would not be in America. She was the first in her family to migrate to the United States. And for her, I am so grateful. I get chills as I look at this photo. And I want to just send her so much love. I love you, Mama, and this is for you. So we're going to get started with my sketches from the year 2000. And a lot of this work is work I literally did when I was 12 and 13 years old. Like was mentioned earlier, I was in a magnet program at South Miami Middle School, drawing program. And so early on, I gravitated towards a certain style of art. I always had the influence of hip hop, of Sean John, of different brands, comic books. These are things that inspired me early on. Of course, you see this image of Biggie Smalls and Little Kim. I actually paired them together purposely. Anybody that knows the story of Biggie Smalls knows that Little Kim was one of his artists. But yeah, early on, I was very influenced by hip hop music, the culture, and the fashion. So now we're going to dive into my high school work. Of course, I attended design and architecture senior high. It was a great opportunity, and it's a place where I grew a lot and flourished as an artist. I learned so much. I was able to explore my music, and at Dash, I was able to not only explore our music but perform it at talent shows. As you see in this photo here, this was 2003, Black History Month, and I was performing with my good friend. And I also started recording my own music at this time as well, with my passion for album art and credits and music. I early on got into designing my own cover art. So that's what you see below, a cover of one of my first mixtapes, which I still have. And maybe one day you guys will hear my younger voice. So yeah, as I'm moving along, this is some of the stuff I discovered as I was going through my high school artwork archives, and I did a series of portraits. And I felt like it was important for me to kind of dive into my earlier work, because when I got an opportunity to see Basquiat's show at the PAMM a couple of years ago, that really impacted me. Seeing him, seeing his work in composition books, seeing all his journals, it just reminded me of how a lot of artists start the same way. And Basquiat has always been one of those artists that have influenced me over the years. So I wanted to kind of honor him by using my earlier sketches from my sketchbook. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of my fashion design, where I started to explore fashion design at Dash. And it wasn't always easy, but I found my way. Of course, I always enjoyed drawing illustrations and coloring, and that was always my passion. But where I had to work a little bit better on or harder on was actually constructing garments. And that's where sometimes I struggled and sometimes I wanted to quit, but I did not quit. I kept going. And at the end of my senior year, I ended up creating this collection called the Urban Gentleman Collection, which was in 2005. And this collection means a lot to me because it represented my struggle of really pushing through to achieve my goal. I didn't always have a sewing machine. I didn't always have access to certain resources, but I believed in myself. People believed in me. I had a family that supported me. So I was able to complete this task of creating this collection, which I'm super proud of, that I still have documentation of. And this collection is inspired by streetwear meets 1920s gangsters. So you see the stencil of Al Capone on their clothing. And at that time, I felt like I wanted to have that juxtapose of like streetwear urban culture and that 1920s suit and very tailored look. And this is what I came up with. So kind of moving along, these were some of the sources of materials that inspired me to create the images I was creating early on, like I mentioned earlier. And pretty much, I feel like these books provided me with fashion editorials. I got to see the different look of things that I really connected to, because I feel like when I was younger, I didn't always see representation. I didn't always see or know about a lot of Black artists in terms of the visual art world, but music, I always had access to music. So as soon as I could, you know, get inspiration or materials, these were some of the things I ran to in the early 2000s. But these magazines have been around since the early 90s and so on. So now to get into my college work, and I stop at this image because right out of high school, I was exposed to Kahindi Wali's work very early on. And the impact that it had on me was just so profound because it was the first time I seen exactly what I wanted to do with my art, which was the fusion between street culture, fashion, hip hop, and fine art. And I feel like Kahindi Wiley did it so beautifully. So after first encountering his work, this was one of the first pieces I created in response to it. Now, moving right along, before I attended SCAD, I actually went to Atlanta College of Art. And while I was attending Atlanta College of Art in Atlanta, I would always hear Kara Walker's name. And the reason why I wanted to talk about her in this presentation, because it was so important for me at that time, being a young artist and really just building the self-belief within myself to know that I can do it, because I didn't see many people that looked like me doing the things that I wanted to do. So when I first heard of Kara Walker and I found out she attended Atlanta College of Art in the early 90s, it was just so inspiring. And of course, her earlier work very inspired me a lot with the silhouettes, her ability to, simplify her ideas and her concepts, but have it speak so loudly with the simplification of the silhouettes. I also enjoy this piece because it's large scale, and she's always done large scale, which to me is always amazing because it grabs people's attention immediately. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Kara Walker for just doing what she's always done. And so, yeah. So moving right along, like I mentioned before, um, magazines have always been a source of inspiration for me. Before the internet, before Tumblr, before all of these social media outlets, I loved to buy magazines. Juxtaposed magazine when I was in college was like a very just integral part of me understanding what was hot in the contemporary art world. And it affected all of me and my friends alike. We all were obsessed with Juxtaposed magazine. Anyway, back in 2008, I happened to pick up this particular magazine, which was the African art issue. And I just love this issue because this was for the first time for me. I was seeing contemporary African artists, Black artists from the diaspora, and it just was a door opener. And at that time, I had discovered Wagichi Mutu's work. And when I discovered her work, that was the first time had heard the term Afrofuturism. And since then, it just stuck with me. So years later, I was lucky enough to actually meet Wagichi Mutu when she did her show here in Miami, and it was just amazing. And again, it's for me, it's always been about representation and seeing women artists, seeing people from the diaspora doing the things that I wanted to do, which is create art, be in gallery spaces, just share my expression with people. And here is one of the images of one of her pieces called "You Tried So Hard to Make Us Away." And another thing that I love about her work is just the mixture of textures that she uses, the collage, and then also just the fact that she was bringing a new concept to me. For me, it was important to see what African artists were thinking at that time, and to see the contemporary thoughts and the contemporary work was really inspiring. And like I said, till this day, she's still one of my number one inspirations. So now getting into more of my personal work that I did in Atlanta. One of the things that was really cool in my college years was I lived on campus, and on campus was the High Museum. And living next to the High Museum, it was just one of the greatest experiences I had because I always had access to just being around the museum, hanging outside, eating lunch, partying with my friends. I always had access to being at the High Museum at weird times of the night, just, and so it was so cool. And I think having that comfort with having access to those spaces, it just allowed me and my friends to be inspired and start to create work. So it was like, hey, me and my friend Kendrick at the time who did this series with me of photography, we hang out there so much. We're like, hey, let's do a photo shoot. Literally, it's like roll out of bed, let's come up with a concept, let's shoot at the High Museum. So this was a really cool experience for me to be able to do that. And even now, when I think of all the things that have been filmed at the High Museum, like Black Panther movie that came out in 2018, it just warms my heart because those spaces have had so much impact. So I'm kind of going through my slides in the same way you would swipe left on your phone or if you're on Instagram, because I have so many images, but I just want to kind of give you all a taste of what I've been working on throughout the years. This is another piece. So shortly after college, I moved home to Miami and my art started to shift. My art started to take a very spiritual turn. This was one of the first murals that I did in Little Havana at a workshop space. This mural is inspired by Oshun. So Oshun, of course, is an Orisha. She's one of the African goddesses, the goddess of fertility. And I was just so moved to represent her in this way and to start to bring these figures to life. So now we get into a fun part. Telekinetic Walrus, my family, my crew. I want to give a big shout out to Jake Tom Zookeeper Fletcher, Wadiz, of course, and William Cito Vivas, and Kamikaze, Michael Kamikaze Rodney. These guys were all a part of my band, we were all part of our collective here in Miami. This band started in 2010, and me and Wyatt actually met in Atlanta, but we started to build this band, and Wyatt invited me at some point to join it. And so we ended up doing a lot of cool stuff. This was a collective of not only our band members, but photographer, artists, designers, I mean, you name it, all types of people. We all work together to create these great pieces of work. This image right here was taken by my good friend who was also part of the Telekinetic family. Her name is Courtney Cates. And this photo shoot was so much fun. But at this point, as a band, as a family, as a collective, we really were finding our stride, finding our visual language. We really just was having so much fun with our costumes and our masks and just tapping into another realm and bringing all of our joy and our expression out. So also while I was working on this project, I also did the illustrations and t-shirt designs. This is the cover of an album, the Telekinetic album called Spaceship with a Heavy Bass Bump, where I conceptualized the album artwork, which was a lot of fun and funky, as we always do. Also, I was, like I said previously, I started working on my costumes and designing them and getting someone to tailor them. And this is one of the costumes I designed for a tour we did in 2016. And the designer is actually local. Her name is, or the woman who tailored this design for me, her name is Erica. She has a line called Unapologetically. Ooh, I'm forgetting the name. I'm sure we'll drop a link in the chat, or we'll drop a link if Erica sees this, and I will make sure she get her shine. I just cannot remember the name of her line at the moment. But I thank you for making these outfits for me. So now this is one of the, speaking on the Spaceship with the Heavy Bass Bump project. After touring and doing all these wonderful things we did over the past couple of years, we embarked on the biggest video project yet, which was the Spaceship on the Heavy Bass Bump. And we were basically, we designed our own sets. Like I said, we did our own costumes. We just did it all. And so this is a clip of what we created. This is a stop animation of that, of us working on the set for my particular video scene, which is my at the time, it was the Hall of Mirrors, my world that I was creating. We've always been big in creative world making. So I'm going to keep moving right along. And we are going to get to see a clip of the music video, The Spaceship with the Heavy Bass Bump. And if you would like to see the full video, of course, you can access it on YouTube. But yeah, we're going to roll it. And I hope you guys enjoy what you see if you haven't seen it yet.
direction. Made some y'all should invest in. Only competition, my own reflection. Androids projections. No flex zone, you texting. Telekinetic on your top 10. Better not speak when I'm talking. Every lyric so vivid, you can feel it. Create every minute and we live it. Always on point, some hate to admit it. Cause we moving at.
I hope y'all enjoyed that clip. As we continue to highlight my wonderful band members and this project that has brought me so much joy over the years. This is a quick snapshot of us performing at the PAMM 3 years ago. So I'm super just honored to be here, being able to talk about this moment because, again, this project has taken me so far and wide. So now to dive a little bit into the Afrofuturism a little bit more with the painting side of things. Of course, I explored it through costume design, I explored it through music, but I also feel like it was important for me to explore it through my paintings. And as you can see, I include a lot of geometry. Let me go back to one of these images. I include a lot of symbolism, which is important for me. It's about the coding. For me, it's about the coding and creating my own language and tapping into worldly language, using worldly symbolism. That's why with this particular piece, you see like a heart, you see the Jordan sneaker. I mean, culturally, the Jordan sneaker has always been very popular since the 80s. And so I like to use contemporary symbolism and old ancient symbolism as well. And you also see the Adinkra symbol for God as well in this piece. So for me, Afrofuturism is about bridging the present, past, and the future, and particularly focusing on Black artists and giving them shine, because throughout my journey, I have not always known about the Black artists of art history. And I feel like for a long time, a lot of Black artists and their stories were left out of the grand conversation. So more recently, I've been studying more and learning about all the Black art movements that has happened, such as Afro Cobra. We have obviously the Harlem Renaissance, which is the big one. So many artists and writers and painters have come out of these different movements. But I think for me, it's important to start to name these artists and to really see who they are. And that's been the vision of my work. So I wanted to show another short clip. This is from my project, the Tri-Angels TRIIB2, and it's just a short clip that was connected to the album, and it's packed with a lot of imagery. So I would love to share it with y'all just so y'all can see how I'm connecting the imagery with the music.
I told him we was coming back. I told him I ain't never gonna stop. We was never finishing. How hard you gonna work for it? How hard you need it? Been trying angels. Been praying for it too. This is just only the sequel. We just even started, babe. Try angels. They like how we came back. We ain't never finished. Try angels.
Thank you. Okay, and also if you would like to check out any of my music, along with the great music I've done with Telekinetic Walrus, I also have my own Bandcamp, Corinne Stevie Bandkit.com, where you can hear all the projects I've self-recorded myself, created my own album artwork, as you know, as you've heard throughout this presentation. But for me, it's always been important, along with collaborating is my superpower, but it's always been important for me to also maintain my individual voice and explore my individual thoughts. So this is why I continue to make sort of like my journal type mixtape, lo-fi, projects. And I hope you all check it out, listen to it, let me know on social media what you think. And and as we move along, into the street art realm. And of course, with my own little twist, I got the colors, I got the different accents, and really just simplifying and tapping into the messaging. While I was working on this, I was actually listening to the Black Panther soundtrack, which is super Afrofuturistically inspired. And I hope you all can check it out. It's still up in the community garden. Here's a flash of the pieces that I currently have at the Global Local exhibition at the Little Haiti Cultural Arts Center. Please check that out. The show is amazing. You all will love it. And of course, last but not least, this is my most recent project that was released last year during the pandemic. It's called Syzygy Coast Album. And it is my offering to just what's going on in the world, what has been going on politically, what has been going on with just people's health, what has been going on with my own health. I really always believe that artists are a vessel and a channel to express what is happening with the greater society. And so with this project, I still, again, wanted to create another world because I saw the world around me was looking a little grim, and I felt like I needed to bring some color. And of course, I started working on this project called Syzygy Coast, the album. It's self-recorded, self-produced, and just so much love put behind it. This project has springboarded into my documentary, which you all will be getting a chance to see the trailer at the end of this talk. But I wanted to highlight my friend and creative partner, Tara Lee Crenshaw, who helped me create my Syzygy Coast art film during the pandemic. We started working on it in October. Actually, we started talking about the idea of creating art in the midst of this chaos. And we knew in our hearts, even though we were all going through it, we wanted to find a way to bring joy and light into our own lives, of course, by tapping into our personal practices. And Taryn, she's an artist who has been filming, doing photography for years now. We met back in 2009 when she was attending Spelman. She was making documentaries there as well. She has a background in women's studies. And just me being a fan of her work and being her friend, it was an honor and a pleasure to ask her to work with me on a project, which is creating our film called Syzygy Coast, which fuses the album and visuals and an interview. And I can't wait for y'all to see it. It's going to be releasing in the next month or so. It's very close. And yeah, I'm just sending love to my girl for holding me down. Y'all check out Taryn Lee Crenshaw's website. Look her up. She's amazing. She does great work. And yeah. So before I wrap up, I would try to read it as quickly as possible. This quote is from Bell Hooks. It was an essay that she wrote in 1992. And it's about the Black female spectator, the oppositional gaze. And I'm just going to read it really quickly. Another representation of Black females nurturing one another via recognition of their common struggle for subjectivity is depicted in Sankofa's collective work, Passion of Remembrance. In the film, the two Black women friends, Louise and Maggie, are from the onset of the narrative struggling with issues of subjectivity of their place. Of their place in the progressive Black liberation movements that have since have been sexist. They challenge old norms and want to replace them with new understandings of the complexity of Black identity and the need for liberation struggles that address that complexity. Dressing to go to a party, Louise and Maggie claim the gaze. Looking at one another, staring in the mirror, they appear completely focused on their encounter with Black femaleness. How they see themselves is the most important, not how they will be stared at by others. So I chose this quote because I felt like that is exactly what we did when we created our film. It was just me and her. I flew out to California. We shot it in 7 days, and it was really about us honoring each other in our sisterhood, in our journeys, and really lifting each other to make something cool that we can look back on years from now and say, wow, during the pandemic, this is what we chose to do with our lives, which is create art. And this is a clip of an image from the photo that will be associated with the film. Of course, I would love to go ahead and run the trailer now if we can, or I'm not sure if we're gonna. Actually, let's go ahead and do the Q&A, and then we can have people wait to the end to see this amazing trailer.
Thank you so much, Corinne. That was amazing. I feel like overwhelmed in the best way possible. Thank you so much for sharing your work. All right, we're going to kick it off with some questions, and I encourage the audience to submit more questions for Corinne while she's answering. Can you tell us a little bit more about how AfriCobra has inspired your work?
Yes. So AfriCobra, I've only known about this movement since maybe 2019 when I went to the show that was at the Mocha here in North Miami. And of course, the thing that took me about their movement is that they're pioneers when it comes to the Black Power movement arts. You know, a lot of the afros you would see, a lot of certain they use the color schemes, the quinacridone purple, like it just blew me away because that's a color I use now. But to see that in the 70s, with just how powerful they were, and everything was intentional, even down to the color schemes. And that's what I love. I saw myself in the work.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I think we had a more specific question from Sandra. Is that rapper Brown Dollars on the feature? His sound is awesome.
Yes, so Brown Dollars, I want to show so much love. This is also my cousin. My family has always been an integral part of my art. And Sandra is actually my sister. So hey sis. So she is showing some love. But yes, Brown Dollars is featured on that clip I showed earlier, as well as a lot of my music. And we're going to keep putting out more music, just more positive vibes to continue to inspire young people to be themselves and really just empower themselves with their art.
Awesome. Thank you. We have another question from Open Sourced. How has the pandemic affected how you make art?
Ooh, I feel like for a long time, so this is what, our second year, but I feel like immediately it's just the anxiety and the feeling of what was going on did play a part. But I was also working during the pandemic. I teach with Guitars Over Guns. They're awesome. They're an organization that teaches young kids how to play instruments, how to write, how to sing. And during the pandemic, that's what I did. We shifted our jobs from going to middle schools to doing it virtually. So it was like I was still in the thick, even though with everything that was going on, we still had to focus in and get the job done. So that I feel like that was my balance. That was the thing that kept me going.
Nice. I love it. And yeah, major shout out to Guitars Over Guns. They do amazing stuff. You do amazing stuff. And speaking on that, I think I had another question. Maybe this is general, but you've talked about so many different mediums that you work in: music, fashion, painting, and now you mentioned Guitars Over Guns. Like, how do you manage your artistic practice in so many different mediums that you seem to be, totally managing simultaneously? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I feel like, well, first of all, I don't have any kids, so I feel like that kind of helps because I do have more time to focus in on my artistic endeavors. But early on, because I have had a lot of experience being in the art community, learning art at these different schools, it's just something that became very natural to me. And eventually I realized I can bridge all these things effortlessly. So sometimes I'm designing, sometimes I'm drawing, sometimes I'm painting, sometimes I'm recording. It just kind of let it go in and out. Whatever comes to me at the moment.
Right. I feel that. And I also totally agree with the kids thing. I'm learning, I don't have any either, and I'm learning that allows me a lot more time than I'm hearing from others. Let's see, we have another question from Denise. Can you tell us a bit about the work that's in your backdrop right now?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I love to paint backgrounds, backdrops, of course, like I mentioned, with Telekinetic Walrus, we really delve into set design with our tours. We created props. But even before then, I always gravitated towards making wallpaper, just so like if I had an event or maybe I'm doing a pop-up art show in a random space, I could easily transform that space. So what you're seeing behind me is a hand-painted wallpaper that's filled with different symbolism. It's also kind of inspired by Takashi Murakami when he did the collaboration with Louis Vuitton. I always love his work because it's playful and it's colorful, and it really reminds me of a lot of the things I do. So I kind of took a stab at recreating some elements from that, but then I incorporated my own flair, of course, as always.
Awesome. It looks amazing. And I love Takashi Murakami as well. I'm seeing lots of, I mean, they're not questions, but lots of calls in the chat for your exhibition here at PAMM and saying they'd pay double the admission price. I totally agree. And I'm going to manifest that in whatever way I can. I totally agree. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us tonight. And I think with that, I'll pass it back to you to introduce this last special clip that we're going to see.
Thank you so much, Anita. This has been amazing. Again, you all, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm really just proud. I sometimes I do have to just pat myself on the back for not giving up, because we all know in this creative journey, it's not easy. So I wanted to go ahead and world premiere. This is what I used to see when I used to watch BET and MTV, like world premiere. This is the trailer of my art film called Scissors G Coast. That is coming out soon. I promise you're gonna love it. Check it out. Let me know in the comments what you think. Please show love at the PAMM's pages, the YouTube page, all of that. Love y'all. The Black contribution is everywhere around us. A lot of us don't learn that history unless we look for it.
But you take that risk, looking at death like you wanna kiss. Might as well stand down, cause you'll never fit.
It's about tapping into the history of Black artists in America.